The scene shifts to the SW Corporation. We see our boy sitting before the director. The old man points out that the man he brought in turned out to be an international fugitive. He mentions that arranging what was requested will be straightforward since many countries want to claim him. He wraps it up by saying they'll make sure he spends his days imprisoned, isolated from society. It sounds like they're talking about the gorilla who attacked them, and I guess that bastard really deserves for all the mess he has caused. The old man mentions he presumes the gorilla is connected to our boy's past. For a moment, Jin stays silent and admits he wasn't directly involved. But yes, the connection is there. The old man says he won't dig any deeper, but assures Jin to come to him if he ever needs help. Jin simply nods, stands up, and leaves without saying much more. The assistant chimes in, saying he was startled when our boy called for help, especially when it involved such a serious criminal and gunshots on the scene. As Jin walks out of the corporation building, his mind drifts back to his injured friend, who is barely hanging on. Jin quickly pulls out his phone, saying he knows someone who can get the femboy treated somewhere safer. But the femboy insists he can handle it himself, because he just needs to stop the bleeding and disinfect the wound. Jin, however, points out that he needs proper treatment. The femboy mentions it'll take too long, and the camp might get suspicious. Jin is shocked to hear this, and asks if his friend is returning to the camp. The femboy confirms he is, but Jin reminds him that the camp gave orders to eliminate him. In response, femboy explains that the gorilla did mention that he was tasked to bring femboy back, but since this gorilla doesn't like 006 or any of the numbered guys, he just went ahead and tried to assassinate. Jin quickly points out that going back to camp is still risky. The femboy just snickers, saying since the camp believes 006 is dead, it doesn't make sense for them to kill him just because he went off looking for Jin. Besides, the femboy says he sees no other way either, because they will come after him if he go into hidings, and that could risk exposing 006 as well. Femboy further adds that if his plan works, he'll make sure they can't track Jin down. It's the least he can do after Jin saved his life. With all the traces 006 left behind, it should keep the camp busy for a long time. He tells Jin he hopes he'll make it and manage to protect his real life. Suddenly, Jin is jolted awake from his flashback when Lady Jai calls out to him. She asks what brings him here, and he responds that he was just running an errand. She then asks if it's really okay for him to be out like this, since he still has not recovered from his injuries. As soon as she mentions his injuries, Jin's mind flashes back to the past, where he remembers getting kicked and beaten by femboy, which only made his previous injuries worse. But instead of admitting that, he smiles and says he's doing great. The girl smiles back and asks if he's free now, suggesting they grab something to eat. It seems like she's taken a liking to him, and even though she has a meeting to attend, she'd rather have dinner with Jin. But unfortunately for her, Jin turns her down, saying he has to head straight home since he already has dinner plans with his family. It seems like she wasn't ready to be turned down by a kid, and she's clearly feeling the heat of the situation. To save her face, she quickly comes up with an excuse, saying she remembers she has some work to do as well. Meanwhile, the guard behind her looks completely pale after hearing her blunt lies. After all, the meeting was the only reason they were here. Suddenly, the girl asks if he'd be interested in taking a part-time job, guaranteeing that the money will be worth it. Once again, Jin turns her down, saying he's not interested. She sighs and finally asks if he wants a ride home. Jin replies with a simple no. As Jin starts to head out, Lady Jai's guard tells him to get well soon so they can train together again, mentioning that the other boys have been asking about him. On the other hand, Lady Jie secretly smirks, thinking Jin is fitting in better with the guys than she expected, and even her picky bodyguard seems to like him. Once our boy is out of the picture, the guard asks if Lady Jai plans to put him in Seo Hacha's security detail. She says yes, pointing out the recent stalker incident happened with Seo Hacha, and noting that it wouldn't be too dangerous since he'd just be escorting her. She asks what he thinks about it, and he replies it should be fine. While Jin's heading down the street, he notices his grandpa standing nearby. He calls out to him, asking what he's doing there, and Grandpa just says he's out for some fresh air. The old man then reveals that Dion's birthday is coming up in a few days, and Jin looks quite surprised. The old man admits that he doesn't know much about Gen Z preferences these days since he's a boomer himself. He asks Jin if he can suggest what kids his age might like as a gift and what her hobbies might be. It turns out, Jin is just as clueless as his boomer grandpa, and there's an awkward silence as they both realize they've fallen into the boomer category. Suddenly, Jie's phone rings while she is sitting in her office. When she checks it, a creepy smile spreads across her face. She picks up the call, clearly surprised that it's Jin himself returning her call, which is quite a big deal in itself. Our boy then asks her about the offer she had made earlier, and wonders if that is still valid. The girl smiles, thinking Jin must be calling about the dinner offer, so she acts all nonchalant, saying she's pretty busy but will check her calendar. However, her pleasant smile fades when Jin tells her he's actually calling about the part-time job she offered him. She looks annoyed when she hears Jin is actually calling about the part-time job, not the dinner. Our boy then asks again if the offer is still valid, and the girl asks if he's interested. Jin confirms he is, so she tells him to come to her studio tomorrow at 4 p.m.